Okay, in this video you're going to get a front row seat into a board of directors meeting for Archi-Demo Co. Since our September board pack went out to the directors, we've had one significant thing happen. We've lost the High Street Yoga Studio prospect. This is going to put a $400,000 hole in our full year forecast. So sit back, grab a cuppa and listen as the directors talk about our options. Well, welcome to the boardroom, guys. Got with me our two executive directors for Archi-Demo Co, or imaginary Archi-Demo Co. So I've got George Panos. George is so well known in the industry, he doesn't really need introducing, but I've known George for almost 20 years. George started as an accountant, became a lawyer before doing an MBA. He was CFO at some of Australia's leading architects, including Architectus, Hassel, and most recently served as Chief Executive Officer at 𝐁𝐤𝐴. So welcome to the boardroom, George. And I've known Desleigh White for about 17 years. We met doing our masters, and I'll be forever grateful for her helping getting me started after taking a break from study and giving me the confidence to keep going. Desleigh's an experienced HR consultant, leadership and career coach with expertise across a bunch of sectors, including architecture. And she's worked with some big brands like Sunrise, Western Union, RSPCA and Hitachi Energy. So welcome to the boardroom, Desleigh.
Thanks, David.
Now, guys, you've been sent the financial pack and we've had a conversation about that separately. We can see that Archi-Demo Co is bang on budget pretty much for year to date. And at this stage, the full year forecast is looking achievable. But as was outlined in the board pack, probably the number one risk was the High Street Yoga Studio that we had in the forecast at 50-50, and it was going to be contributing about 100 grand a month to our revenue forecast. And now we've lost that. We've been notified in the last couple of days that we've lost that job, and it's put a 400 grand hole into our full year revenue forecast. So we've got a problem. And we need to rack our brains now and try and work through some of these options that we've got. As I see it, those options are that we either try and bring some work forward, we try and win a new job. We might have to do some layoffs, or we might reduce some hours. So anyway, I'd like to open it to you guys and try and get some ideas about what we might look at and what sort of scenarios we need to be looking at.
What sort of lead time are we looking at, David? How long have we got?
Yeah, good question. You'll see from the cash flow forecast that we've got quite a bit of cash still.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see for the cash flow forecast that was in the board pack, we started the year with about 1.5 million. We finished with about 1.4. So we've got cash, right? Where if you look at the revenue forecast, we've got enough work in October and November to keep our people busy. So we've got about a month, I think, before things become really desperate. You can see in the revenue forecast, December, January, are well below budget. So we've got a problem there already. And High Street Yoga was going to help us. But, we've now got this $400,000 problem, which, to me, is the equivalent of, around about 2 to 3 full-time people. That's the size of it.
Yeah, look, David, for me, it's a significant loss coming into Christmas. As we know, the activity within the architecture actually drops. So this remains a pretty big hole, notwithstanding that we've got a month to go. So in some sense, the choice for us is, whether we do lay off people or we start talking to the people now, because that money, it may be more than 2 or 3 people, maybe 5, if it's 100,000 a month, will create a huge issue for us on a profit and loss basis, and also cause us a cash flow issue as well. I imagine we'll be dropping 100,000 a month in terms of some of our costs, and our profit will be quite low.
Well, so unless we take some cost out.
Yeah, unless we take some costs out. And then I think, referring to Desleigh, who's the expert in this field, I mean, what do we do in relation to this? We either going to get rid of people or actually start discussing with people what we do. Even if we do win a job coming up to Christmas, you probably won't mobilise till the new year. Desleigh, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, let's do the numbers on all of the options. But I think what we sometimes forget when we are leading an organisation is that other people other than us have ideas about what could be done. And so if we start talking to the team earlier, they might have leads that we just don't even know about. Maybe they've not even thought them through. So let's have those conversations. What are the leads that they've got? What ideas do they have? Where do they think we can cut costs? I've worked with other businesses where they've been really successful in sharing with the team. We're coming up to a challenging time. We've just lost this piece of work. We know that. What ideas do you have? And what they've seen with their team, and I think it's really doable here, is some people want to move to part-time. Like, do we have a bunch of people who would be happy to go to 4 days a week, maybe? And if they're coming up with that idea, then all the better for us in terms of business. I think we also need to bear in mind, when we're looking at design, when we're looking at architecture, there's a lot of emotion to that, really. And so we need to look at our emotional culture as well. How do we want our people to feel through this? What's our employee value proposition? Do we want to be able to attract them back in time? And that all needs to inform the actions that we take. Because if we are very harsh and just go, boom, we're cutting you, you have no job, it's almost Christmas, Merry Christmas, have a great New Year, that's not a great message. And that impacts our reputation. And so there's a risk to that, in my view.
Then there's a survivor syndrome issue as well.
Yeah.
But I guess one of the concerns, I think, with this sort of transparency, we've got about a month. If we were to find another job, we wouldn't have a problem. So are we sort of, scaring the horses a bit? Should we be maybe running a few more numbers before we have that conversation, so we know what we've been through some of our options before we come to them and ask them for, would you recommend doing that? So, we've got this problem, we've looked at it, we think these are our options, but we're interested to see what you guys think.
I think maybe there's an interim conversation. Like, I think we've gone straight to, we tell them what the problem is. And there's valid points to that, don't get me wrong. But what if we go to them and say, hey, we lost the yoga studio, so let's do a brainstorming session. Let's all come together and let's just go, right, what are the opportunities out there that we may not have thought through yet? And it's a creative kind of process, because these are creative kind of people.
And just following on that is that, they will realise, I think modern workforces realise that, losing a big job may have implications on their roles. I think, modern workforces now have changed from, that command structure, and there's this, bottom up approach as well. And they want to be involved in these decisions. Clearly, there's a reality in business, but I think, given the position of that we do have enough cash, given the position that we've been very successful and we have a good culture, trying to maintain that, I think, is really important, and really only be harsh unless we have no other choice. And given that we do have, we've started so well, the market's looking good, we've had this job loss, we should probably, in my opinion, start to have those conversations, and then sort of say, what can we do, and then include them in whatever decisions that we have to make. Clearly, if we have to make a decision, we do. But certainly, what I call the Gen Xers and everyone else is very different to what we were used to in the past, where they just expected in and out. Here, they actually expect a lot more. So I think that's the interesting thing. So in some sense, David, I think we probably have enough numbers at the moment. We know. I think your numbers are accurate enough to tell us what we need to do. The system is, as we say, bulletproof. And I think, but the next stage, I think, is having these conversations, getting some feedback, and seeing what we can do, and looking at options of, some leave taken, some unpaid leave, reducing some of the hours before any harsh decisions are made. Asking you is, when do you think the final date for that is, when it doesn't really matter when things fall? I mean, given it's the 30th of October today, I mean, is it is it going to be, the 1st of December or the 15th of November, where, if things haven't happened, then we need to act. I think
we've got a big task in front of us in November. $490,000 worth of work across these new jobs, including Alice Road, right? And we don't want any of that to slip into December, because we've got then problems with leave and things like that as well. So I think we've got about a month's runway. We've got a month's runway with cash. We've got some work that we can bring forward, but at our risk. We can afford to do that with our cash flow at the moment. That'll just sit in work in progress. Yeah, we're going to have to do something by the end of the month, because if we carry all these people through the Christmas break with no work for them to come back to,
yep,
we will burn a big hole. All right. So, what sort of scenarios should we run?
I'm really keen on the workshop to get everyone's ideas of what leads are out there that we're not aware of. What conversations have they been having that they haven't connected the dots in, that might be future work?
Yeah, I guess it could be a variation on an existing job that the client's talking about, but hasn't been fed into the forecast yet.
Yeah.
But I guess that's, again, talks to those two gaps in the numbers, the risks I was talking about. We need to go back over this forecast as well and make sure it's right, and make sure that those project principals are accountable for these numbers.
And also, David, you're saying, that we're able to, it's a big month. Are we actually going to deliver this project, and are we going to have percentage complete correct as well? So there's a number of balls in the air. But I do agree that, we know that we've lost a job. Even there's no harm in discussing with the staff that, we've lost this job. What else is it? And discussing the slowness of the December, January period as well. And where we think maybe more work will happen, and prepare them for the position of maybe things slowing down. So we know that things may pop up. We may be looking at the cliff, and then tomorrow suddenly a big job comes through. Looking at proposals and how many things are in the pipeline, and a few other things I think are really important.
Yeah, there's nothing in the pipe. Well, there's an interiors job, actually, cheap and nasty lawyers. Starting in January.
Yep.
And that's around about that's 93 grand a month weighted average. Maybe that's one that we could maybe lean on our interiors people and see if that one can start a bit earlier.
Yep.
Before Christmas rather than after. So
I think the other thing too is we've got to decide, what are we prepared to invest, or what losses are we prepared to suffer, if we want to retain everyone as well. So I think this is the sort of the numbers that we need is, if the yoga job doesn't happen and nothing else happens, what is the downside? Are we looking at 100,000 a month? What's going to be the loss, and when's that going to come back, and when's the moment where we can't actually suffer anything more? And so we can make that decision as well, on that basis. And we can then, include the staff in relation to, is it going to be redundancies, or is it going to be, reducing hours, or people taking extended leave or unpaid leave? These are the sort of the issues that we'll need to address if it's, we want to retain the workforce that we've trained, and actually gain their trust as well.
Yeah, and I think for me, that's the second step. The first step is that, what's potential that we don't know about at the moment.
Yep.
And then the second step is, based on the numbers, what ideas does the team have that we're not necessarily seeing?
All right. Well, we might wrap this up now with a to-do list of having that meeting with the staff and looking for those ideas. And then we'll feed some of those ideas back in with some of our own, and build a few scenarios around this, in the next week or so, and then look at our options.
Yep, and come back together.
All right, fantastic. Well, thanks, guys. I wish we were meeting under better circumstances, but we've got to work out a way forward here for Archi-Demo Co.
And we will.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.